2 a.m. Sunday in March. 2-lane country highway. 40 minutes from my parents' place. A pair of headlights came up behind me really fast and didn't pass. I'm Greg, by the way, 33, software engineer. And that drive between my parents' house outside Roanoke and my place in the city was something I did about once every 6 weeks. My mom would call on a Saturday morning. Said my dad had asked about me, and I'd drive up after work, usually stopping at the Cracker Barrel at the I-81 exit. Their coffee was the only thing that got me through the second hour. Eat dinner, sleep in my old room, leave Sunday before midnight so I could be at my desk Monday morning. The route was about an hour 15 on a good night. 20 minutes of interstate, then a long stretch of US 460 that turned into a 2-lane country highway after the last gas station. Then 10 minutes of city streets at the end. I'd done it 40 times. I never thought about it. The country highway was always empty after midnight, and the deer were the only thing I was ever worried about. The thing about that stretch is that there is nothing on it. No gas stations, no convenience stores, no houses you can see from the road. Cell service drops out at the 16-mile marker and doesn't come back until 8 miles before the city line. The shoulder is gravel and weeds, and the woods are right up against the gravel, close enough to the road that the trees touch your headlights when you take the curves. If something goes wrong on that highway, you handle it yourself, alone, with whatever's in your car. I've heard other people tell stories from rural night roads that don't fit any pattern I can explain. This one, honestly, I can explain. The pickup was real. The plate, even covered in mud, was real. The trooper had a file open. What I'm telling you happened on an ordinary stretch of country highway, to an ordinary guy driving home from his parents' house. Whatever else exists out there at 2 a.m., I'll let other people speak to. I'd left my parents at 12:50 that night, wanted to beat the rain that was supposed to come in around dawn. The first half of the drive was uneventful. I was on US 460, just past the last gas station, doing about 60 in a 55 zone. Brights on, because there were no cars behind or in front of me. Then I saw a single set of headlights, about 3/4 of a mile back. Came around a curve I just exited. They appeared at a normal distance, but they were closing on me unusually fast. Not impossibly fast, just fast enough that I dropped my brights. They kept closing. By the time the lights filled my rear view, I had a vague registration that whoever it was must be doing 80 or 85, and that the empty road was their problem and not mine. Then he passed me, hard, cleared my driver's side bumper by about 3 feet, didn't slow at all, and his taillights vanished around the next curve before I'd even fully registered him going by. I remember thinking, dimly, dark pickup, maybe a Silverado. Plate covered in mud. He didn't tap his brakes once. I exhaled. I'd been holding my breath without realizing it. I went back to driving at 60, trying to find the song on the radio that I'd been listening to before the brights distracted me. Then, about a minute later, I came around the next curve myself, and his pickup was right there, dead ahead, doing 35 and a 55. I told myself in the space of about 4 seconds that I'd misjudged his speed when he passed, that maybe he'd been pacing me and not actually that fast, that maybe he'd hit some construction up ahead and was slowing down for it. But there was no construction. The lane was clear all the way to the next visible curve, maybe half a mile out, and there was no reason a pickup that had passed me at 85 30 seconds ago should now be doing 35. I came up behind him. I waited about 30 seconds for him to pick the speed back up. He didn't. I pulled around him in the oncoming lane and got back in front, well over the speed limit just to make the pass quick, and as I cleared his hood, I glanced sideways. His face was turned, looking at me. He didn't have his eyes on the road. I drove. 5 minutes. The road stayed empty. The pickup didn't come back. I started to forget about him. The radio came in better as I crested the hill at the 18-mile marker. I had 2 more bars of cell signal. I figured I'd just been driving past somebody having a bad night. Then I checked the rear view at 12 after 2, the way I always do at landmarks, and a pair of headlights had appeared behind me again. Not far behind, maybe 200 yards back. Same general height. Coming up the way the first set had. He passed me again. Same way. 3 feet of clearance, no warning, no taillights tapping. He vanished around the next curve. and a minute later, I came around it, and there he was again, going 35. I was angry by then, not scared. I figured it was a drunk asshole, or somebody having a panic attack, or some kind of game I didn't understand. I pulled around him a second time, faster than I should have, and as I cleared his window, I made a point of not looking sideways. His head turned toward me anyway. I saw it in my peripheral. 5 minutes later, again, headlights coming up. Same fast approach. By then, I'd started timing it on my dashboard clock because I wanted to confirm I wasn't imagining the cycle. The gap was approximately 5 minutes between the moment he disappeared from my rear view and the moment new headlights showed up behind me. That was the third time. I didn't pass him on that one. I dropped my speed to 35 on purpose to see if he'd go around me. He matched me. 5 minutes of two cars going 35 on a 55 highway, 200 yards apart. That's when I understood, that's when it clicked. The pattern wasn't accidental. Whatever it was, he was checking something, pacing my speed, pacing my reaction time, watching how I responded, whether I'd accelerate to escape, whether I'd brake to confront, whether I'd pull over. He was running tests. The cell signal was dead. The next gas station was 8 miles ahead. Behind me, all there was him. I made the gas station at the 8-mile mark with the headlights still in my rear view 200 yards back, matched. I pulled into the lot at 35 and parked under the brightest fluorescent over the diesel pumps. The pickup did not pull in behind me. It kept going. I watched it pass. Slow now, no hurry. Slow enough that I could read silver on the side stripe and the partial outline of a F something on the tailgate. The mud-covered plate. Then I watched it brake. He didn't pull off. He didn't go up the road. He pulled onto the shoulder, maybe a 1/10 of a mile past the station, and just stopped. Lights off. He sat there. From the gas station, I could see him not as a pickup, but as an absence, a darker patch in the dark of the shoulder, waiting for me to pull back out. I locked the doors of my car. I stayed in the driver's seat. I called my brother-in-law, who is an ex-cop, and I told him exactly what was happening, and he told me to stay where I was. My brother-in-law stayed on the line with me for 43 minutes. The clerk inside the gas station, an older guy with a beard, looked at me through the glass once and went back to his book. The pickup never moved from the shoulder. Around 2:50 a.m., a tractor trailer rolled past us southbound. My brother-in-law told me to pull out and tuck right behind it and not let any space open up between my front bumper and its mud flaps. Not until I was at least 3 exits closer to home. I rode the truck's tail like I was towing it for 19 minutes. The pickup pulled out behind me a few seconds after I left the lot. He stayed about 300 yards back. At the exit for the city, the truck took it. The pickup didn't. He kept going west on 460. My brother-in-law kept me on the phone until I was inside my apartment, with the door deadbolted. Then he asked me to drive to a state trooper's barracks the next morning and file a report, which I did. The trooper took it down. The trooper did not seem surprised. My brother-in-law called me back 2 days later. He'd asked someone he knew. He said the term is vehicular stalking, predatory driving on isolated rural roads. The pickup wasn't trying to run me off the road. He was checking how alert I was, how fast I reacted, how far I'd let him push before I broke pattern. Whatever happens next in that pattern, I never saw it. Maybe the trucker showing up on the southbound was lucky. Maybe he changed his targets after 1 hour of failed reconnaissance. Maybe he was already looking for the next set of headlights to follow. I do not know. I do not drive that road at night anymore. When I have to drive any rural highway after midnight, I keep my partner on speakerphone the whole way through. I asked the trooper, when I filed the report, whether they ever caught a guy doing that. He thought about it. He said sometimes they do, eventually when one of them goes too far. He didn't tell me what too far meant. I didn't ask.
So my GPS rerouted me at 1:30 in the morning, on a stretch of highway I'd been driving for 15 years. Within about 8 minutes, I was on a road I'd never seen before. By the way, I'm Becca, 41, sales rep for a medical device company, and the Pittsburgh to Philly run was something I did basically twice a month for almost a decade and a half. I had clients on both sides of the state. The I-76 Turnpike and I-81 and I-78 routing was so familiar to me at this point. I could call out the rest stops by name in order. I knew where the deer crossings were. I knew which bridges iced first in winter. I knew that the Plainfield exit had the only late-night sheets worth stopping at. And I knew that the cell signal dropped out for about 11 miles between Carlisle and Harrisburg. Not to bother trying anyone during that stretch. I had driven the route in snow, in rain, in fog, and twice. Once on purpose and once not, under enough exhaustion that I should not have been driving. The thing about driving the same route for 15 years is that you stop seeing it. You stop noticing the signs, the exit numbers, the difference between 1 mile of asphalt and the next. You drive on autopilot, which means that when something is wrong with the road you are on, your brain takes longer to register the wrongness than it should because you are not looking at the road. You are checking the time, listening to whatever podcast you're on, going through the next day's emails in your head. That night, I'd left a client dinner in Pittsburgh later than I should have. 11:50 p.m. to be exact. Honestly, I should have taken the hotel my client offered. I figured I'd push through, get home around 3, sleep till 9. The first hour and a half were uneventful. I made the Plainfield sheets at 12:50, picked up coffee and a bag of pretzels, and got back on the turnpike. I was somewhere east of Harrisburg, just past the I-81 split, when my Google Maps app pinged with a reroute notification. The on-screen banner said, "Heavy delay ahead, faster route saves 23 minutes." I didn't look up from the road. I tapped accept. That was the moment. In retrospect, I would have given a lot to take back. The next exit came up after maybe 4 minutes of normal driving. I took it. The off-ramp was unfamiliar, but unfamiliar didn't mean wrong. Every turnpike has off-ramps you've never used. The road I came onto was a 2-lane state route. No streetlights, no center reflectors. The asphalt was older than the asphalt on the highway, with longitudinal cracking I could feel through the suspension. 8 minutes into the new route, I started to notice. I had not seen another car since the off-ramp. I had not passed a single road sign with a number on it. The signs I had passed were green and showed only place names, county roads, hamlets, towns I'd never heard of. I told myself it was a backroad shortcut. Pennsylvania has a lot of those. Maps loves to send you down them when there's an accident on a highway. I checked the screen. The app still said I was on the chosen reroute. ETA recalculating. 11 minutes shaved off. The blue arrow showed me on a road. I kept driving. Then I passed a house. Set back 40 feet from the road, behind a half-collapsed fence. The siding was peeled. There was a single light on in a second-story window. Yellow. Steady. The rest of the house was completely dark. There was no driveway. There was no car. A light in the upstairs window of an abandoned farmhouse at 1:40 a.m. 3 minutes after the house, I came around a curve at maybe 40 miles an hour, and there was a sedan parked in the gravel apron of the curve. Lights off. Nobody visible inside. I slowed instinctively. The geometry of the parking didn't make sense. The car wasn't pulled off enough to be safely parked, and it wasn't far enough into the road to be a breakdown. I passed it. I checked the rear view to see if anyone was getting out. Nobody got out. The car was just there. 5 minutes later, around the next series of curves, I came up on a sedan parked in the gravel apron. Lights off. Nobody visible. Same dark color, same parking position. I told myself 2 cars on the same back road could plausibly look similar. I sped up and didn't look in the rear view. I drove 45 seconds before I admitted to myself that the rear plate placement had been the same as the first car. After the second sedan, I started actively looking for the next sign of human activity. Another car, another house, a mailbox, anything. I drove for what felt like a long time. The clock on the dashboard ticked from 1:48 to 1:55. The asphalt got worse, then better, then worse again. The trees got taller. I did not pass another vehicle. I did not pass another house. The houses stopped having porches. The houses had stopped, period. At 1:57 a.m., my Maps app froze. The blue arrow stopped moving. I tapped the screen. Nothing. The little spinner came up and stayed up. I checked the cell signal indicator at the top of the phone. No bars, no searching, no anything. I looked at the screen and the screen looked back at me, and the road I was on did not exist on it. I pulled the car onto the shoulder. I did not turn off the engine. I sat with both hands on the steering wheel. I stared at the phone. I did not move for what felt like a very long time. There were no other lights anywhere on the road. The trees on either side were close enough that the headlights died inside the trunks. I rolled the window down half an inch to listen, which is the kind of thing you do when you're trying to be brave, and what I heard was nothing. Total nothing. I rolled the window back up. I locked the doors, which was already done, and I locked them again to be sure. My phone said no signal for 11 minutes. I sat there for the first 6. I did not call my husband because I could not call my husband. Because I could not call my husband. I just watched the dash clock cycle from 1:57 to 2:03. At 2:03, the cell signal came back all at once. 3 bars. Maps unfroze. The blue arrow recalculated, and what it told me did not make sense. My location on the map was 18 minutes east of where I should have been. Not on the route the GPS had rerouted me onto. Not on any route. I was on I-78, well past the cell dead zone. The dash clock said 2:03. The GPS clock said the same. The miles didn't match. There was no record on the map of the back road I had been on. No record of the off-ramp I had taken. The reroute was not in the route history. I have location history on. It showed a perfect, uninterrupted Pittsburgh to Philly drive. I drove the rest of the way home in the right-hand lane at 62 miles an hour. I did not change the radio station. I did not stop for anything. I was at my driveway by 2:46. My husband was awake. He'd been waiting up. He says my hands were shaking when I came in, and he made me sit at the kitchen counter while he poured me water. He pulled up the GPS log on my phone the next morning. There was an 11-minute gap, no location data, then a position, one that did not connect to any road I'd been on for the 8 minutes before the gap. I keep a paper Rand McNally atlas in my car now. I have not accepted a GPS reroute past midnight in 2 years. I drive my Pittsburgh to Philly trips during daylight, even when it costs me a hotel night on the back end. I have not told this story to anyone except my husband and one friend because I do not have a way to tell it that doesn't make me sound paranoid. What I keep coming back to is the second sedan, the one in the second curve. If it was the same car twice, then somebody was driving it. And if somebody was driving it, then they were going somewhere too. I never figured out where. I'd been on ride shares maybe 400 times before that night. None of them ever made me check the route mid-trip. This one did. My driver took the second left when he should have taken the first one. I noticed because the route was lit up on my phone the whole time, and the second left wasn't on it. I'm Anya, by the way, 26, paralegal, and that night I was coming home from a friend's little sister's Sweet 16 party in Bay Shore. My friend Maya had asked me to come because her sister had specifically wanted me there. I'd been Maya's babysitter back when we lived in the same building before college. The kid was in middle school now, remembered me as someone who used to make her macaroni. So I drove down from Patchogue at 6, ate cake, danced badly, and stayed until the party broke up around 12:40 in the morning. I'd planned to crash at Maya's, but my mom had texted around midnight saying she wasn't feeling well. She has lupus, and any infection makes her crash hard, and I decided to head home. I grabbed a coffee from the bodega across from the venue, called the Uber from the curb, 1:15. The thing about going home alone in an Uber at 1 in the morning when you're a small woman is that there is nothing physically separating you from the driver. There is no partition. There is no second occupant. There is no obvious way out of a moving car except a window or a door at a stoplight. You are trusting that the GPS, the one the company assigns to monitor the trip, is enough to keep him in line. Most of the time, it is. The driver knows it's tracked, and that's the deterrent. Most of the time. My driver pulled up in a gray Honda Civic, late model, fairly clean. The app said his name was Marcus, 4.8 stars. I confirmed the name through the window before I got in. He confirmed mine. I said, "Going to Patchogue, right?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." should be 22 minutes this time of night. His tone was completely normal. He pulled away from the curb at Main Street and First Avenue, made the right onto Park, then the next right, both shown on the app. The first thing that pinged for me was about 3 minutes into the drive, when we approached the on-ramp for Montauk Highway, and he passed it. Montauk Highway was the only route to Patchogue the app had ever shown. The app, on my screen, was still showing it as the route. He had just driven past it. He took the next left instead, which put us on a residential street I didn't know. He took another left after that. He'd missed 2 turns the app had told him to make. The route on my screen was now showing the GPS pin off the path, recalculating in real time. The blue path had grown a kink that hadn't been there at pickup. I leaned forward and said, "Montauk Highway is back that way," as politely as I could. He said, "I know a shortcut. Drive this area all the time. Faster." He didn't look at me when he said it. I tried to make myself believe that. Some drivers do know shortcuts. Some routes the GPS doesn't fully account for, especially in older neighborhoods where one-way conversions have happened recently. Maybe he was a hometown guy. Maybe he was right. The street he had us on was empty. The houses were dark. No cars parked along the curb. And he was driving slightly too slowly for somebody who actually knew where they were going. My phone buzzed. I looked down. The Uber app had pushed a notification. Ride canceled by driver. Below it, "Please rate your experience." The ride was still going. I was still in the car. The trip on the app's main screen had vanished. Marcus, in the rear view, was watching me look at the phone. He saw me see the notification. I'm sure of that. The little flicker in the rearview mirror, his eyes coming up, finding mine, going back to the road. He drove for another 15 seconds without speaking. Then he turned right onto a slightly larger road, still in a residential area, still not Montauk Highway, still not on any version of the route to Patchogue. I checked the cross street. I committed it to memory. I will remember the cross street for the rest of my life. He stopped talking. The rapport, honestly, calling it rapport was generous, that "how was your night?" long day at work performance from the first 5 minutes was gone. He drove. He glanced at the rear view every 15 or 20 seconds. The glances were not casual. He was tracking what I was doing with my hands, what I was doing with my phone, whether I was getting ready to do something. I was, in fact, getting ready to do something. I just hadn't decided what yet. We came to a junction with a larger road, I recognized as access to Montauk Highway from the south. Clear left turn. The app, even with my ride canceled, showed Montauk as the major artery. He went straight through. He didn't slow. He didn't signal. We were now on a more rural-feeling road. Dark woods on the left, a strip mall with all its lights off on the right. I had no idea where we were. He took an unmarked turn into what looked like a service road behind the strip mall. There were no streetlights. There was no signage. The road was paved but narrow, and trees were close on both sides. He was going about 20 miles an hour. I sat in the back seat. I made a decision very fast about what I was going to do. And I made it before he made his next turn. Because I knew, somewhere in my body, that I was not going to get a third decision. I picked up my phone like I was about to take a call. I did not call anyone. I mean, who do you call when you have 9 seconds to decide? I held the phone to my ear. I said loudly, "Hey babe, yeah, I'm in the Uber. We're on a service road behind the Smith Haven Mall right now." The driver's a Marcus, gray Honda Civic, plate HJX8826. I should be home in 15. I named the cross street I'd memorized. I named the Civic. I read the plate off the dash camera mount where Uber drivers are required to display it. He'd display it. It was real. Marcus glanced once in the mirror, very fast, when I read the plate. After that, he didn't look at me again. He kept driving. He did not turn the car around. He did not pull over. But he stopped speeding up. The needle had been climbing. The needle stopped climbing. He drove the rest of the service road at a flat 25. I started recording short Snapchat clips at 15-second intervals. The inside of the car, his profile in the rear view, the dashboard, the plate displayed on the mount. I sent them to 2 friends. I named what was happening in the captions. He had to stop at a red light at the end of the service road where it opened back onto a wider street. There was a 24-hour gas station 300 yards ahead with its lights on, and I could see a marked police cruiser parked at the diesel pumps with an officer inside it. The light was red for 38 seconds. I waited until the count was down to about 12. Then I unlocked the door, opened it, got out, shut it, and ran. I ran toward the cruiser. The officer saw me coming. He got out of the car. Marcus took the next right when the light turned green. He did not wait to see what I was doing. He did not get out and chase me. The officer had a description of the car within 30 seconds. They had the plate within 90. Uber pulled the trip data within 2 hours. Suffolk County DA's office indicted him 3 weeks later. He took a plea, 4 years. The detective who interviewed me said the indictment file mentioned similar earlier complaints that had not gone to charges, and that this was not his first. I do not take rideshares alone after dark. I have an arrangement with 2 friends. If I'm out at night, they share their location with me, and I share mine. I will only call a car if at least one of them is awake to track me. I take licensed cabs with partitions when those exist. I memorize plates the moment I get in. I sit on the side of the back seat behind the driver, never the side where he can reach me. What I think about sometimes is that I knew at the second left. The first time something didn't fit, I almost didn't say anything. I almost let it go. The version of me that didn't say anything, that's the version of me I do not want to think about for very long. Four hours after my father's funeral, I was on I-90, about 40 miles east of Buffalo, a little after 3 a.m. My serpentine belt snapped, and the tow truck that arrived 9 minutes later was the wrong one. I'm Diana, by the way, 38, registered nurse from Buffalo. The only reason I was on the road that late, I was driving back from my sister's apartment in Albany after the wake. I'd grabbed a Dunkin' coffee on the way out of the city, figuring the caffeine would carry me home before sunrise. My sister lives in Albany, and I had been at her apartment for the wake. The funeral itself had been earlier in the day at a cemetery near her neighborhood, and the family had gathered at her place after. I'd planned to stay the night, but at around 11:30 something in me said I needed to be home. I have a husband and a son. I needed to be in my own bed in the morning. I told my sister I would drive. I left her apartment a little after midnight. The first 2 hours were normal. I-90 West, light traffic, my own thoughts. I was past Syracuse, just east of the Buffalo Metro line, when the steering started to feel heavy. There's a stretch of I-90 between Albany and Buffalo. If you go off the road in the middle of the night, you are alone. In a way most people don't think about until they're in it. The cell signal is not reliable. The exits are far apart. The shoulder runs against woods on the north side and farmland on the south, and there are no streetlights, no businesses, and no houses visible from the highway for miles at a stretch. If something goes wrong with your car, you can sit on the shoulder for an hour without seeing another vehicle pass. At 3:08 a.m., my dashboard chimed and the temperature gauge spiked. I knew immediately what it was. I mean, I'd had a serpentine belt go on a different car 10 years earlier, and the symptoms were identical. I got the car onto the shoulder before it died. I put the hazards on. The AAA call connected on the 3rd try. The dispatcher told me ETA 75 minutes. I confirmed my location, plate, make, and model. I told him I would stay in the car. He said good. He said, don't accept a tow from anyone unless they confirm the AAA reference number. And he gave me the reference number. I wrote it down on the back of an old receipt. 9 minutes after I hung up, a tow truck pulled onto the shoulder behind me with its yellow caution lights on. I saw it in the side mirror first. My initial reaction was relief. I figured AAA had revised the ETA, or that there was a tow operator nearby who'd been pulled off another job. The truck was a flatbed, not the standard hook and tow most AAA contractors use, but I didn't know enough at the time to know that meant anything. The logo on the door was a yellow magnetic placard with a phone number printed in red. I did not see a DOT number. I did not see an MC number. I did not see a company name spelled out in any other location on the cab. I told myself, honestly, in the few seconds I had to think about it, that magnetic placards happen. Some operators run multiple vehicles and use removable signage. I told myself the missing dot number was probably on the back end of the flatbed where I couldn't see it. I told myself 9 minutes was fast, but not impossible. Maybe AAA had a contractor at the next exit? I rolled my window down maybe 2 inches when the driver got out. I did not unlock the doors. He came up to the window without a clipboard. He did not have any paperwork in his hands. He was wearing jeans and a hooded sweatshirt and work boots. No logo on any of it. He said, "AAA send me. Just hop in the cab, I'll hook her up real quick. Get you off this shoulder." He was looking past me at the back seat. He was not looking at me. I asked him for the AAA reference number. I had the receipt in my hand. The dispatcher had told me a real AAA tow would have it. I didn't say where I'd gotten the instruction. I just asked. He said, "They didn't give me a number. They just said they had a stranded driver 8 miles east of exit 46. He gave the wrong exit number. I was at exit 48. I told him I would just call AAA and confirm. I held my phone up. I had 1 bar. He said, "Phones don't work out here. You'll just keep losing the signal. Just hop in. We'll get you to the truck stop and you can call from there." His voice was completely level. The tone was friendly. The words were wrong. The words a real driver would say are, "No problem, take your time." Real drivers do not insist. He didn't approach my car door directly. He walked back to the cab of his truck after telling me to get in. Then he walked back to my window. He did this 2 more times. Each time he walked, his hands were doing something I couldn't quite see, going to a pocket, going to the door of the cab, coming back empty. The 4th time he walked back to my window, he tried the door handle. Just a touch. Like he was checking. The doors were locked. They had been locked since before I called AAA. I had the receipt with the AAA reference number on the dashboard, deliberately, where he could see it through the windshield from his angle when he stood at the driver's side window. He looked at it. He looked at me. His face did the thing faces do when somebody is making a calculation. His expression did not change in any obvious way, but he stood completely still for about 3 seconds before he turned around, walked back to his truck, got in, and shut the door. He did not drive away. He parked his tow truck 12 feet behind my car, nose in. He left the yellow caution lights on. He did not get out. From the angle of his cab and my driver's side mirror, I could see his silhouette through the windshield of the tow. He was watching me. Not driving, not on a phone, not doing paperwork, just sitting in the driver's seat of the cab, watching the back of my car. The cell signal cycled in and out. I would get 1 bar for 90 seconds and lose it for 30. I sat with the AAA dispatcher's reference number in my hand, and I did not move from the driver's seat. I did not unlock the doors to get something from the trunk. I did not get out to look at the engine. I checked the rear view every 15 seconds. He was there every time. He did not move. At 3:59 a.m., I saw a second set of yellow caution lights coming up the shoulder behind us in the distance. The real tow had hit the 75-minute mark. The real AAA driver pulled up. White tow truck, full dot and MC numbers on the door, AAA decal in the windshield. He came up to my window with a clipboard and said the reference number out loud before I could ask for it. He saw the other tow parked behind me and his face changed. He turned around, looked at the driver in the cab of the first tow, then walked back to his own cab and picked up his radio. He spoke for about 5 seconds. Within 8 seconds of that, the first tow's caution lights cut off. The truck pulled out onto the shoulder, then onto the highway, and accelerated east, headed back the way he had come from. The real driver got my plate. He got the description of the other tow. He told me while he was hooking my car onto his bed that I had done the right thing. The locked doors and the reference number were exactly the protocol AAA dispatchers train people to use. And he was glad I'd had the dispatcher who told me about it. He said it had been close. He said it in a way that didn't sound dramatic. He said it the way a paramedic says the scan came back okay. I was at the truck stop 50 minutes later. I called my husband at 4:45 a.m. and I cried for the first time since the funeral. I filed a state trooper's report the next morning with the plate of the first tow truck. The trooper who took the report said the state police had a regional bulletin out for that pattern. Yellow magnetic placards on flatbeds. No DOT. Fast arrival to single female stranded drivers on the I-90 corridor. He said my report would join the others on file with the Interstate Task Force. He said I was not the first person to file. He didn't tell me how many people had filed before me. I don't think he was allowed to. I have a Garmin InReach in my car now. Satellite SOS button. Paid subscription. I do not drive long distances overnight alone anymore. The funeral was 4 years ago. I have not been back to my sister's apartment because the drive home is the part one cannot do. If these stayed with you, hit subscribe. There are more like them coming. And if you've got a story that fits this channel, leave it in the comments. I read them.